Seattle hockey fans, welcome back to Locked On Kraken. We're going to talk Shane Wright and the official news, at least according to Geoff Baker, regarding his exemption, where he might end up. We are then going to talk about preseason, training camp, all of that, and then finally, a way that you can subscribe to Seattle Kraken news directly to your mobile device. That and more coming up on this episode of Locked On Kraken.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are the Seattle Kraken.
What's cracking, Seattle hockey fans? Erica L. Ayala here, your host of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we bring you your favorite team every single day. Thank you to the everydayers, to the OGers, to those who make this a part of your daily destination, or at least about 3 times a week. We're still in off-season mode, but not for long. We're going to give you training camp updates first. And just today, before we came on board for Locked On Kraken, the Seattle Kraken sent over the training camp schedule. And once again, fans, you are invited to Kraken Community Iceplex and, of course, Climate Pledge Arena when they're playing preseason games to take in all the fun. So we've already talked about this. This is the preseason schedule. For those watching on YouTube, it's up on your screen. For those listening in, thank you so much, but no worries. I'm going to walk you through it. Right now here, you got the preseason schedule. Once again, we start with a split series against the Calgary Flames. Half of the roster is going to be in Calgary. Half of the roster is going to be at Climate Pledge Arena. That's Monday, September 25th, 7 p.m. for the game in Seattle, 6 p.m. for the game played at Abbotsford Center. Then the Seattle Kraken will take on the Vancouver Canucks. Congratulations to Quinn Hughes, the new captain there. We've been talking about captains, but the Vancouver Canucks, we will host them on Thursday, September 28th. That's 7 p.m. Pacific time or local time. And on Monday, October 2nd, we take on the Edmonton Oilers. And that will also be 7 p.m. local time. We'll wrap up the preseason schedule on the road Wednesday, October 4th against the Vancouver Canucks, and Friday, October 6th against the Edmonton Oilers. Those games are at 7 p.m. and 6 p.m. local time, respectively. But as I said, we got some news on training camp. If you are an everydayer, you know I've been telling you this might be the single most important training camp coming up in Seattle Kraken history. And I'm going to give you some updates on what Locked On Kraken has planned. That's coming up later on the show. You're just going to have to wait a little bit longer. But I'm not the only one who's saying that this is big time. And if you've been listening to Signals from the Deep with Nick Olchek, he just had a 2-part series with Everett Fitzhugh. And on the second part, Nick and Everett really get into how important this training camp is going to be to someone like Chris Driedger. All right. So I think you're going to want to pay attention, and don't worry, Locked On Kraken has some ways to get you involved. But let's take a look at what the Seattle Kraken sent out. Training camp kickoff officially starts on September 21st. That's a Thursday, but there's going to be a rookie camp. So the 18th and 19th, the Seattle Kraken are going to host a rookie camp. And that's going to be, well, as you probably deduced, for the rookies. But we're all together on the 21st. Then they have these different, as you can see here, and that's my hand if you're watching on YouTube. Hello. As you can see here, they have these different kind of affinity days. So a few are considered like forward days, defenseman days, and goalie day. So I'm not exactly sure what that means, if that means only those players are showing up, or are we going to appreciate them? Because then they also have baked in, which I think is so interesting, Military Recognition Day, National Coffee Day, there's Kids Day, and I'm a little bit put out that it's not listed here, but there's also a Hispanic Heritage Day, which I think is going to be pretty dope because I am Latina. So, of course, that stood out to me. But to give a little bit more detail, I'm going to run through what the Seattle Kraken sent media. So for those watching on YouTube, I'm just going to read from the email. I'm not going to put it up on the screen. But as I mentioned, rookie camp is from the 18th to the 19th of September. Then the first 2 days of training camp, there's going to be a practice and there's going to be a scrimmage. And you can check out some of this on Kraken Community Iceplex if you have any questions. September 23rd is going to be a day off. So take that day off. Don't show up at Kraken Community Iceplex. There might be some guys on the ice and maybe you'll see some folks in the building, but there won't be any official team practices. There will be a practice. It's only listed as practice on September 24th. Then the 25th, we get ready for that split squad. Remember, so a morning skate all together, and then the split squad that's against Calgary, both at Calgary and at Climate Pledge Arena. The 26th is another day off, and so I'm pretty excited for training camp. As I've been telling you, this is going to be the most important training camp for the Seattle Kraken, and I think there's so many things that I'm excited about. I mentioned this in passing, but Ty Cartier and it was Riker Evans. I think I was like, I don't remember if I said it, but I definitely didn't remember who was, or I couldn't tell from the photos from NHLPA rookie camp. But Ty Cartier and Riker Evans were there. There's an article that our good friend Glenn has regarding the Muckleshoot Arena patch. We've seen that before. I couldn't find it. September 30th is Hispanic Heritage Month at Kraken Community Iceplex. So I'll probably show up for that. Anyway, going back to why this is going to be an important training camp. Again, if you listen to Signals from the Deep, the official Seattle Kraken podcast, although we are your only 5-day-a-week podcast, but Nick and Everett agreeing with me, but specifically regarding Chris Drieger. Ty Cartier, in Glenn's article, Glenn is the hockey news writer for the Seattle Kraken, and he writes that there's a little bit of a mishap with how they spelled Cartier. And honestly, they really didn't pump the Seattle Kraken players very much, but that's all right. We're used to being the underdogs. So, but I think it's already interesting to me that those are the rookies that were selected. I don't know how they went about selecting those rookies. Maybe it was about availability, but Upper Deck was a part of that. So they took their rookie card photo. Speaking of photos and media day, the Seattle Kraken, some players, including Matty Beniers, and of course, our good friend from team media, Lindsey Brown, are at NHL Media Day. So that's another thing where you'll see when it's the national team, the national broadcast, some of what you'll see is there. There is going to be a media day in Seattle that is not open to fans from my understanding, but there will be one. So all those little promos and things that you see, those will be available. But it's got to be competitive. And I saw an article, we'll talk about this probably a little bit later in the week, but thinking of where Kyler Yamamoto fits in, where Brian Dumoulin fits in. There's an article, I know we talked about the Jordan Eberle trade. There were also some other rumors that involved Justin Schultz and a different take perhaps than I had. I like Schultz. I liked what he did, but I did preface that was last year. So we have to see what he's going to do this year. So again, there's just so many pieces that are up for grabs. And I honestly think there's a lot that we don't know. We just don't know enough about this squad. And that could be a great thing, right? But given the success that we had, I think it's a little unnerving. So I don't know. Question of the day, what are your thoughts? What are you most excited about for training camp? What are you most worried about for training camp? Let me know. And as of today, actually right now, there is a way that you can communicate with the Locked On Kraken show directly from your mobile device. And I'm going to tell you about that. And we're going to talk about the Firebirds. I mentioned Shane Wright. We've kind of been alluding to this, and we've got something officially official. We'll talk about that and a signing for the Firebirds, all that and more coming up on Locked On Kraken. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our good friends at FanDuel. Football season is off to a wild and crazy start. I'm just going to leave it there. So I hope you're paying attention to the injury report. But FanDuel is giving you the best chance to win all season long. Because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you can get bonus bets every time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get bonus bets for every victory. You can use your bonus bets for things like spreads, player props, over-unders. We've been talking a lot about future bets, and again, maybe Matty Beniers falls into that conversation. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with the US's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Once again, thank you for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Ayala here. I'm back home in New York. I'm covering the WNBA playoffs. The New York Liberty are playing the Washington Mystics, and that is going to be a grind. But speaking of WNBA and more central to Seattle, wow, Jewel Lloyd, your points champion, peak performer in the WNBA, told us in media that she played maybe 5 games healthy. And then she actually amended that to saying she played 4.5 games out of a 40-game season healthy and was the leading scorer in the league. Can you even imagine, with the determination that she had, learning how to step up and be a leader without Sue Bird there? And if she's healthy, woo. But we'll get into that. Unfortunately, the Seattle Storm will not be in the playoffs this season. But just wanted to give you that little crossover update. You know I love a strong crossover. But let's talk about our guys, the Firebirds. So the news that we're getting, and it's news in that someone like a Geoff Baker tweeted this out, but we've seen Seattle Kraken accounts talking about this. I've talked about this, but this is what Geoff Baker has in his article, his most recent article posted today. Kraken prospect Shane Wright will be allowed to play in AHL if he can't make the NHL squad. And if you remember Everydayers, OGers, there was like this he was just shy, like a game shy of the different agreements between junior hockey, the AHL, and the NHL. Ronnie Francis talked about this at end of season media availability. So we've talked about this on the podcast, but long story short, he kind of fell into this Bermuda Triangle. I don't know. It's kind of been the story of Shane Wright's development. So top prospect Shane Wright will have at least one less major thing to worry about next week when attending his second Kraken training camp. Kraken general manager Ron Francis told me Monday that after discussions with counterparts from the NHL and the Ontario Hockey League, he'll be granted an exemption to send Wright to the American Hockey League in lieu of the junior ranks if he doesn't make the squad. The Kraken announced Tuesday they'll stage a rookie camp September 18th and 19th. We just talked about that. Here's what Ron Francis said to the Seattle Times. I don't have anything in writing saying I'm good, but it sounds like if we got to that point, it would be okay. I don't really know what that quote means, but I guess it means that it's looking good, but it's also not in writing. So I don't know. Hopefully the saga will not continue. But overall, I've talked about this on the show before. Everyone should want what's best for Shane Wright's development. It makes no sense for him to go to junior hockey. I've talked about that before. I think a lot of people agree. He's one game shy of whatever arbitrary number they picked. It was a wild and crazy road, more so on the media drama and kind of fans being excitable. After a while, everydayers and OGers, I just got tired of talking about it. But I'm glad at least that part is going to be done. And, if Shane Wright ends up in the AHL, I don't think it's the end of the world. Why? Because it's going to be the most and must be the most competitive training camp that we have. If he needs a little bit more time with the AHL, so be it. I think that's fine. But the fact that he doesn't have to double dutch between 3 leagues, it's a good thing. So if you want to learn a little bit more about that, go read Geoff Baker's piece. Speaking of Geoff Baker, I'm going to mention him. I've done since the beginning of the show something called Goodreads, and even talked about maybe doing a book club. So we're going to find a way to fuse those things into a really cool way that, again, on a more consistent and direct basis, you can engage with me and the Locked On Kraken show. But we're going to talk about that coming up. The other news coming from Coachella Valley is that Ryan Jones, a defender, 209-pound, 6'2" defender from Crown Point, Indiana, 27 years old, signs a contract with the Coachella Valley Firebirds. This will be his fourth contract in the AHL. He's categorized as a physical two-way defender. I kind of like that already. Played his last 2 seasons with the Syracuse Crunch. Tallied 3 goals and 9 assists for 12 points. He also helped the Crunch in their playoff run, netting 1 goal, suiting up for 4 games. He was selected 4th by the Pittsburgh Penguins in the 2016 NHL draft. He has 8 goals, 26 assists in 166 AHL games between Syracuse and Rochester. There also have been some reports, we haven't confirmed it with the team yet, but that there's some professional tryouts, including someone from the from Everett Silvertips. So I'm going to wait on that just a little bit. We should get the roster. There was a little thing. It was supposed to be a hyperlink, but there was no link. So I'm waiting just so I have a more comprehensive and, quite honestly, accurate list for you. But we should be getting those rosters soon, especially since rookie camp opens up on the 18th and 19th. But once again, giving you some Firebirds Friday on a Tuesday. We're 3 times a week, and I'm traveling. I'm in New York right now, so bear with me. But we're going to keep giving you Firebirds updates every once in a while. Coming up next, though, on Locked On Kraken, if you're an everydayer, you've heard me teasing it. It's time to let you know about the Locked On Kraken Daily Digest. That's right, Locked On Kraken Daily Digest, giving you the details coming up on this episode. I want to thank you, fans, as always. For making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination, or at least 3 times a week. But if you do make us your daily destination, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's listening on audio, or even on our YouTube page, you are going to see, starting today, that there are going to be ways that you can directly text me and the show. The Locked On Kraken organization, as I've mentioned before, is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. And we are now working with a company called Subtext. And the way this works is that we can create a community via direct text messages. And I will be able to send out alerts for game days. And this is going to be huge because next week I am going to be in Seattle. I'm going to be in Seattle for the start of training camp. I'm going to unfortunately miss rookie camp because of the WNBA playoff schedule, but I will be in Seattle for all of training camp and preseason, all the way until the day after Megan Rapinoe's last home game for the OL Reign. We'll talk about that a little bit as we get there. But so with that time, I'm going to be batching all kinds of content and interviews. I'm going to be able to give you updates. And now, because of our partnership with Subtext, that's right, can get messages from me curated directly to you. Now, the cool thing that I love about subtext is that it's not just me preparing certain messages and having them sent out every day. That in and of itself is kind of cool. But what I also get to do, what you also get to do, is you get to text me at the number, and then I can reply directly to you. I can also set up different alerts, and that's where I'm grabbing a prop, if you will. That's where the Goodreads is going to come in. So Goodreads is a little segment that I've been doing for a little while, more so early when we started and sporadically since. But as part of Goodreads, I have always wanted to get into this. When it mattered most, the forgotten story of America's first Stanley Cup champions and the war to end all wars, about the Seattle Metropolitans. I'm back home in New York, and when I moved to Oklahoma, I didn't get to grab everything, especially my entire book collection. So I already had some annotated notes in here, and I'm rereading this, but I want to invite you to read along, not just this, When It Mattered Most. Geoff Baker's got a book on the Seattle Kraken that I'm going to order. So the way that subtext works is you can get all of the messages that I have, but then I'll also give you alerts. And if you text that keyword, then you will also get all of the text messages on that topic. You want game day updates? You'll get them. You want good reads for our book club, or kind of like our reading club, because it's not just going to be books, I'll text that to you. You want exclusive interviews? You text the keyword and I'll send you a link that's only available for people on subtext. And the reason I wanted to start it this week is because with subtext, when you sign up, you have a 14-day free trial. So for the next 14 days, starting today, we're going to get to learn and grow this community together. But some of those 14 days is going to overlap with my time in Seattle. So that way you can text me direct questions that you have. When I know that I have an interview lined up, you can text message me and I will see the message and I can ask specific questions when it comes to those exclusive interviews with some of your favorite members of the Seattle Kraken, the Coachella Valley Firebirds, the staff, the broadcast team. It goes on and on. So here's my fun graphic. Hey-oh! I absolutely love this photo. It's like the kind of Raiders Nation look that I've got with my locked on hat. I'm pointing up at it. I've got my sunglasses. I've got my locked on hat and my Seattle Kraken jersey, having a good time. And this is our chance through subtext to unite as a community. Now, the text messages that you send to me, only I'll read. So if you have, I'll be doing AMAs, ask me anything, mailbags, all that stuff. But then there are some messages where I can, again, respond directly to you, or it can be something that I send to either all of us or the specific subgroups. So again, it's an SMS feed. It goes directly to whatever number you want, wherever you can get text messages. You will get game day updates, so that will include in the preseason latest Kraken news directly to your phone. And again, we're going to do a monthly AMA. Some of you know that I cover women's hockey. There's a lot going on in women's hockey before I head out to Seattle. And in between game 1 and game 2 of the WNBA playoffs round 1, I'm popping up to Toronto. And I will be at the PWHL draft, which just to be clear, because I had a weird situation on social media. It's more of an expansion draft. It's a new league, just like, the Seattle Kraken, we're a new team. And so what happens, you have to be able to draft from the available talent, just in case that was unclear. And it's not really something that I've talked about. Maybe I made some assumptions. Also, there's kind of been some details that we've been waiting on. So I just wanted to make that clear. But if you have questions about women's hockey, you can send those directly to me, and I'm curating all of this. So if it's a question, maybe you don't want to put it up on YouTube, although I hope you still make comments publicly on YouTube, because then we can have more of a conversation with everyone. Maybe it's something that I said on the podcast that you have a question about, or you're like, hey, Erica, like, remember, this is not women's hockey, and in men's hockey, we do things this way. I forget those kinds of things all the time. Blame my head and not my heart. We all sometimes default to things. And again, if we're doing book club stuff, I can give you questions of the day. That's something that I'm going to start using subtext for. What's the question of the day? When you want to know what's happening or what I'm going to talk about on the upcoming shows, this is going to be the way that we do it. So again, it's a 14-day free trial starting whenever you sign up. So if you want to sign up after I'm at preseason or training camp, you want to wait till the first game of the season, that's going to be against the Vegas Golden Knights. You have to listen to part 2 with Nick and Everett. I didn't know there was someone else that gets as worked up about the Vegas Golden Knights as I do. And that other person is the one and only Everett Fitzhugh. And he dropped a little gem in there about the schedule and about how we weren't supposed to play Vegas. But again, you got to listen to that. But see little nuggets like this. That's all of the kind of stuff that we can talk about on subtext. It's a subscription. So after the 14 days, it's going to be after the 14 days, it's $4.99 a month for all of the things and more as we continue to curate this just really awesome way of communicating. And as I've mentioned, between my role with CBS, I'll be able to travel a little bit more, at least in theory, to cover the NHL. So of course, I'm going to try and align that as much as possible with Seattle Kraken games. But this is a way to support the Locked On Kraken show. This is a way to make sure that, I know some of you have said you want to see more player interviews. So I made it a priority to get my butt out to training camp. And also, as I've said time and time again, and as I will continue to say, this must be the most competitive training camp we've ever had. And so I have some ideas, but I'm also going to ask you, and you can help me curate some things. When I'm in Seattle or anywhere else traveling or watching Kraken games, I can send text messages to you and we can hang out. Let's have a beer. Let's, hang out at Rough and Tumble, whatever the case is. So I hope that you will consider subscribing. Again, 14-day free trial. And then after that, it's $4.99 a month. You can text 918-731-3154 to get started. Again, that's 918-731-3154. And in case you're wondering, 918 is a Tulsa area code. This is my first Tulsa area code, but I figured at least you'll know it's me. I didn't want to oversaturate. New York's pretty populous. Obviously, a lot of you are in Seattle or the Pacific Northwest. So I figured not a lot of you probably have a Tulsa number coming to your phone with updates on the Seattle Kraken and the Locked On Kraken show. So, we've got a lot. We're gonna do a book club. I'm really excited for this. Can you tell? So it's a book club / Goodreads. I think we're just gonna call it Goodreads. Things that I read that I like that are about Seattle history, Seattle Kraken history, Seattle hockey history, or just hockey history, things on our team. That's gonna be a lot of fun. I cannot wait. We're also, of course, we're not gonna leave the Firebirds out of this. I've told you I want to spend a little bit more time with our ECHL team who is going to pass through Tulsa. So when I'm at those games, if you sign up for those, you can get text messages. So this is exciting. I'm excited. The final thing that I want to say, which is more about the Locked On NHL channel, is, as some of you know, I do the women's hockey bi-weekly hockey spotlight, and as the PWHL comes around, that's going to be awesome. But also, we're going to start doing our previews, things that you should know about all of the 32 teams, and I will be one of the hosts for that, helping kind of bring some of what you need to know again about every team. And so I'll be talking to a few more hosts, and we're also going to do a Pacific Division roundup. Already started talking to some of the hosts. So there's some squad casts coming your way. And sometimes I have to cut those squad casts down, which, it always hurts my heart. We really try to keep this to a 30-minute show. So if you sign up for subtext, you get the whole thing. Special links, all kinds of things. That's my pitch. That's my show. Can you tell I'm excited about it? Heck yeah, let's go. I think this has a lot of really great potential. Until maybe I see you at Kraken Community Iceplex or Climate Pledge Arena, that's going to be our show. We'll come back a little bit later. It's looking like it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, because Friday is a Liberty game. That's subject to change. But if you follow on subtext or social media, usually I'm pretty good with updating there. But you know what I'm going to say? Hold fast. Stay true. Get fired up because it's almost training camp. It's almost preseason. I'll catch you on the next episode, unless I catch you over on subtext first. Peace.